Hello, welcome to Big Derm Energy. Ever wondered what it takes to make, market, and distribute skincare products that really deliver? Well, we've been at it for over 5 years, and we just can't stop talking about it. So join us as we separate the facts from the fads with today's guest, Dr. Steve Sue. This is episode 6 of Big Derm Energy. Today, we're talking about one of the hottest topics in the acne treatment space, fast relief from pimples. Everything that you need to know about pimple patches and acne spot treatments. Well, welcome, Steve.
Great to be here.
Thanks for coming on again and helping with some tips that can help people solve for their acne concerns. This is a topic that is super, super interesting because, this is very trendy, right? And typically geology has not been focused in on trendy products. But over the past 5 years, with the help of some brands that have really brought it to the surface, we've seen that pimple patches and spot treatment creams, are like really like the number one thing customers are looking for in treating their acne, right? And breakouts. So tell us a little bit, just to start us off, like how do pimple patches work? What is hydrocolloid as an ingredient? And like, how is it effective?
Hydrocolloid is basically, it's a kind of dressing. It's basically, we actually use it a lot as more or less a bandage for certain kinds of wounds. And what it kind of does uniquely, they can absorb like water, right? It can absorb edema or fluid. And so, in some ways, the application towards acne is interesting, right? Because I think in some ways it makes a lot of sense, but you don't really look at an acne lesion or a pimple as a traditional wound, right? So it's basically taking this wound care product and, putting that into a acne, kind of management based solution, right? So it's got a lot of certain kind of carbohydrates in it, right? That really attracts water. So that's kind of a way. So we have like wounds that are very wet or exudated is the medical term. And they're useful to like, keep that from getting too moist, which can cause issues. And so it makes sense when you kind of apply it to an acne lesion that has a lot of inflammation. It's really like, warm and inflamed, that it has some benefit.
So they're basically just sucking the gunk out of the wound, which is
Yeah. Yeah. So what's, acne comes in all different, kind of sizes and flavors, right? I think some of the most uncomfortable acne lesions are, large, they're red, they're inflamed, they hurt, and a lot of that inflammation, what you're going to have with it is, excess fluid or edema, right? And so putting a hydrocolloid patch can help, draw out some of that fluid, right? And make the lesion smaller, flatter, a little bit more comfortable. And I think one of the key benefits of these pimple patches, it actually prevents you from picking at it or popping or kind of making it worse. So that's actually, I think, one of its key benefits, right? Is like you put something on there, you feel like you're addressing it. And in some ways you are, but you're also preventing yourself from making it worse.
I think we're jumping a little bit ahead. I was going to ask you specifically if pimple patches can help prevent scarring. And I think you kind of just answered it with that, right? Where it kind of helps prevent you from picking at it. But like in terms of like different types of acne, right? How do pimple patches, how are they effective against different types of acne? And can they help prevent against scarring against certain types of acne other than just preventing you from picking at those pimples?
Yeah, no, it's a great question. I mean, I think that ultimately, you know, I'm sure people have done some studies, but I think it's still early in the game where, using pimple patches or not, has it been definitively proven to reduce scarring? I don't think that's been done, yet. Just because like, they're selling, they're working, like, we don't necessarily always need to do a complex randomized control trial. I think pimple patches are the most effective for kind of the inflammatory kind of, lesions of acne. So not so good for blackheads and whiteheads, but more of like the, papules, the pustules, maybe the nodules, those acne lesions that are inflamed, right? Red. And I think that's where they're going to work sort of the best because of their mechanism of action. Now, in terms of like preventing scarring, I mean, it depends on the acne stuff, right? Because if you have deep acne lesions, having a pimple patch may or may not really make a difference. But, certainly, people that have a tendency to pick, right, which a lot of us do, that can worsen it. That can lead to an infection. That can lead to a deeper wound, a deeper lesion, right? And that's more prone to scarring. So I think practically, I bet it does. Right? It's kind of like my honest
Okay.
answer, even though it might be like not a great, clear, study that proves it.
Right. So there's kind of almost like some secondary benefits, like you're reducing the inflammation of it, and that's happening faster. Therefore, like it's not visible to yourself to pick at for a longer period of time. So that could help. The fact that the pimple patch sits over it, the wound in the first place, you're not picking at it.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. Um, Tell us a little bit about like how long should you leave a pimple patch on so to actually get it to work? We have it's really funny, we do a few podcasts, Steve, not just this Big Derm Energy one, but like with other um, agencies and things of the like. And we just have this weird knack where every time we have a podcast coming up where we need to be on film, one of us who's on gets a pimple. And it's kind of great and it's like bittersweet because we get to use the pimple patches. We get to use our sulfur treatment cream. And there was one I was on and I put it on like 8 a.m., right? I used the sulfur cream first and then I let it dry. I put the pimple patch on. By lunchtime, I had taken the patch off. And by 4 o'clock, I was on the podcast. You wouldn't even know. And it is like the biggest, reddest, most inflamed pimple. So like, did I do it right? Is using the acne spot treatment cream along with the pimple patch make it more effective? How long should you leave it on? And what kind of can people expect to see in terms of, visible results?
Well, you have to think about it this way, right? The best way to treat acne is to prevent it from happening in the first place. And so I think that's why things like having a great retinol at night, having, a great cleanser, right? Having, those things that we do, and that's really the way to deal with it, right? Because when you have a clear active pimple that's been brewing for 2, 3, 4 weeks, right? Doesn't kind of happen overnight. You may notice it overnight, but that was a process, right, to get there. So pimple patches play a role when you have the aftermath of it, right, to kind of make what happened a little bit less uncomfortable, let it heal faster, prevent you from picking at it or popping it to make it worse, right? So it just plays a different role in the game, right? It's a little bit more of like a last ditch thing or a goalie, right? And the real thing you think about is how do you manage the acne so you don't get it in the first place, right? So I think that's the way I look at how we deal with acne. It requires all these different kind of tactics and techniques. And I think, pimple patches have a role to play.
So are pimple patches then purely cosmetic, or do they also offer long-term benefits in addition to having, a great exfoliating face wash and a strong, daily skincare routine that's just going to help with your general skin health?
Wouldn't say it's cosmetic. I think in some ways, pimple patches are, they're wound bandages, right? Like an acne lesion as a wound bandage, and bandages help things heal, right? They help things, get better. They prevent things from getting worse. I think that's a great way to look at it, right? It's not cosmetic. It's really something that kind of helps with when you have an issue or problem, resolve it quicker, right? Sooner than it naturally will.
So can you overuse pimple patches? Like, or like, should they just be used for really emergency spot relief? You have a big date coming up, you want to look good on camera, you're shooting your Tinder headshots or whatever. Like use them occasionally, or can you use them on a pretty regular basis if you are getting regular breakouts?
I don't think they're, bad to use regularly, right? I would sort of say if you're regularly getting pimples and you're using a lot of pimple patches, you should be doing something else, right? Too, right? To prevent those pimples from happening. Otherwise, you're kind of like, you got a boat, right? It's a lot of holes in it. You can keep like getting water out of it. And those are pimple patches. Like those are buckets, but like patch the holes, right? Like that's really what we do here at Geology is offer you that ability to solve acne at its base, right? But
So it's
when
kind of
things
like
pop up,
it's like the duct tape.
yeah, I would say, duct tape it's sort of like, you get pimples here for no reason. So that's a big gnarly one on your nose right before prom. That sucks. Great opportunity, right? To use some of these things. But what would be the best is like you have a regular routine you stick to. And, these things are just rare. And when they do pop up, yeah, sure, grab it. But I don't think it's like the long-term solution. I think it's a part of the, armamentarium that you can use to treat acne. Check.
Have you seen in your practice and with your patients, this trend as it's increased? Have more of your patients been asking about spot treatments and pimple patches as opposed to like full blown acne treatment solutions?
Well, I definitely see them, have come on the scene, right? I see a lot of my patients with them on when they come see me. And, my message is the same, right? Let's get the underlying acne under control. And it's totally fine to use these guys, use these things, right? To kind of help you with these issues or not, when typically, I have an emergency pimple, which is kind of a joke, right? Kind of a, our pimples are for emergencies. Like, we do things like steroid injections, right? Put a little steroid in and that brings things down, but you have to see a dermatologist for that, right? But I think this is kind of like a not as, aggressive, right? But something you can do at home.
Very interesting. So let's switch topics to the other part of this. And, maybe Steve, you mentioned this is actually funny. But you mentioned like you see people come in with them on. The ones at geology are clear. They're very unnoticeable. You could probably wear it to a job interview and someone wouldn't notice depending on where it was. Obviously, if it was on the very tip of your nose or something, maybe you'd see it. Maybe we should come out with some BDE ones with your face on them and people
Yeah.
can just wear them.
Yeah, maybe.
So let's switch to the other part of what is our blemish buster kit. So our blemish buster kit is made up of the Zit Zapper pimple patches, but you also get a sulfur-based acne spot treatment cream. So tell us a little bit about the spot treatment cream. How does the sulfur work? What does it makes that an effective ingredient against treating acne? And is it is it worth using the two of these things in combination if you do get, an irritated breakout?
Yeah, no, I'm a big fan of sulfur. It's really a cool ingredient. I mean, there's some prescription topicals that use sulfur. The sulfur washes. They're really effective. Fortunately, they can be very expensive and it's sort of difficult, but I think there's some good over-the-counter solutions like the ones we make, right?
Uh-huh.
Sulfur is kind of interesting. The first thing is, it doesn't smell great. I think we've done a really, really good job of that, right? Think about sulfur, right? But the thing about sulfur that's really interesting is that it's got really great anti-inflammatory properties, right? So it really calms down inflammation. And you've got a big, significant, active lesion or pimple, you want to hit that inflammation hard, right? And that's something that sulfur does well. It's got antimicrobial, like antibacterial kind of functionality as well. It's kind of antiseptic capabilities. So I think that's really good and really useful. And also kind of has this sort of anti-redness, probably more from its anti-inflammatory. So, we use it for things like rosacea, right? Which is not acne. It's different than acne, but the redness of an acne lesion is oftentimes what is very bothersome, right? And so it's got this, anti-inflammatory, antimicrobial, anti-redness sort of functionality. Makes it really nice. And it's also like non-irritating, right? I think that's really nice too, because then, for people already have sensitive skin, already have acne issues, that's a little bit sort of nice to have. So it's not really, that bad for sensitive skin.
Interesting. So in terms of the anti-redness, a lot of people will describe it as color correcting. I've noticed a lot of these, not just ours, is like a light tinted green. How much of it is actually the sulfur as the ingredient versus like the cosmetic application of the green tint, helping with redness?
Yeah, so it's a good question. I mean, I think sulfur is really acting more or less on the anti-inflammatory side, which that decreases excessive blood flow to that area, right? That decreases the redness, and then the green tint is more of that optical effect, right? With red and green mix, right? It kind of neutralizes a little bit. So I think ultimately sulfur is doing the heavy lifting with the anti-inflammation, but the green tint is a nice sort of makeup cover, right, if you will, or sort of a visual effect that can be very helpful.
Interesting. Let's talk a little bit about it as an ingredient, compared to, other acne treatments like a benzoyl peroxide or salicylic acid, azelaic acid. how does sulfur compare? Are these ingredients that should often be used together when treating acne? Do they do similar things, have similar properties? Um, can sulfur or salicylic acid be used by themselves?
Yeah, I mean, sulfur traditionally has not been as popular for acne treatment. It's been more of a go-to for rosacea. But, for a lot of adults, they kind of have a mixture, especially women, of rosacea and acne, kind of a combo. And in those sort of combo situations, as a dermatologist like me, I kind of look at someone's like, rosacea? Do you have acne? Do you have both? Sulfur is like a really nice way to be like, let me cover both bases, right? So I think that ultimately it's not as like, directly popular. It's not like sort of first line for acne. We'll go for sulfur, but it has a really nice ability to kind of, help with a lot of different things, and it's well tolerated, right? And so I think it works well as a combination, right? Ultimately, it just kind of depends on the individual, what they like. There's nothing wrong with combining that with salicylic acid, right? And the sulfur itself has anti-acne kind of functionality. So, I think having that anti-redness thing, especially as a spot treatment, that's really clever. Really, really kind of nice thing that we do here at Geology, so that, you got to get to the fact that like with that, single lesions really bothersome for you, you really wanted to get it flat. You really want the pain to go away. You really want to get the redness down quickly, right? And so I think this is a nice combination to do that while, right, while you're still treating yourself at night, in the day, with the things that really prevent acne from forming the first one.
That's interesting, how much you mentioned redness. When I first came on to geology and before I had access to the skincare quiz, I never would have guessed how big of a concern redness, really is. Definitely within, the male demographic in particular. And I also do struggle with some sensitive skin, like when I get exposed to heat, showers, things of that nature. But, a lot of our success stories are around how we've helped with rosacea, we've helped with eczema, we've helped with redness, we've helped with just evening skin tone, right? And these are like some of the things I think when you talk about having a full healthy skincare routine, right? It is about those spot treatments to reduce inflammation, reduce redness of the individual breakouts, but it is your overall skin health as well as you mentioned, and having that kind of full healthy skincare routine. Do you have any patient success stories that you could think about that involve fast relief emergency products? Did you save anyone's prom, Steve?
Well, I mean, when they come to me, it's really serious, right? So usually I run for, have an injection and these kind of things. But I really do think that, these acne patches, make a difference. They really help. They go change something that takes maybe 2 or 3 days to go away to maybe one day or 18 hours, so you got to catch it at the right time. If it's already healing, it's already going down, then it probably won't make a difference. If it's too early, it probably won't make a difference either. But like when you catch an acne lesion at the right spot, I think it could definitely make a difference.
Right. Great. Thanks for sharing all your knowledge today, Steve. I know this is one of our most popular products. We have this available on retail shelves at Target, on Amazon, on the Geology
Yeah,
website. If you've never used a pimple patches or acne spot treatment, but you're getting that occasional stress breakout, I highly recommend you put one, in your medicine cabinet. They can be a real savior. And, as Steve, as you recommend, really all about keeping that healthy skin, with that daily routine. So thanks for joining. Thanks for sharing these tips, and look forward to getting these out there.
for sure. I think it's a great thing to add to the toolbox for sure. Thanks, Steve.
All right. I'll see you on the next one, Steve.
Cool. Take it easy.